Oh, hey, King.
I want to tell you about a new friend here of the channel. It's Badlands Munitions Company. Training ammo, pistol ammo. There's even match ammo. What's dope is, guys, they're based here in the United States, right out of Arizona. Everything, it's all made in-house. They've actually given us a discount code, 10% off for all the homies. No matter what you pick up, if it's ammunition, you're getting 10% off. Code 110SAS, check them out. Kings, JD's and Lenham, this is 110 SAS Actual, and welcome back to the show. We have a very interesting gun here today, a gun that has been impossible to clone since the dawn of time. Guys, we have the legendary HK417 Hyena build. Guys, I am joined by my friend here today, Kieran from Tier 1 Outfitters. I appreciate you having me out.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. Yeah,
I appreciate you Fuck, bro. Kieran, I appreciate you coming out today and bringing your legendary build here, the HK417.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be out here, man. This place is awesome. Wouldn't want to stretch these legs out anywhere else.
Now, guys, this, to my knowledge, correct, is like one of the very, very few. And you guys at VBD Retail and Tier 1 Outfitters are the only people getting this clone correct suppressor into the States. Is that right?
Yeah. So the B&T Rotex 3 was exclusively a European contract suppressor, which B&T USA didn't really plan on doing until we bugged them a lot. This 417 has been a clone that people have done in the past, but they've had to substitute the silencer because it just wasn't available. You can't import NFA items for civilian use.
One thing I think is like super interesting about the 417 is that when it comes to this gun, you know, you see a ton of the 416s, you know, all those SEALs and DEVGRU dudes, the guys use them on the Bin Laden raids. They're, you know, legendary status. But the 417, I feel like, is kind of a really sweet gun that's just kind of cast in the back, you know, kind of overshadowed by the 416 and all of its success. But in my opinion, I think the 417 is a lot more fun. Now, guys, you know me. I am a FUD for large frame gassers and big semi-automatic AR-10s. I mean, if it's 7.62 or 6.5, I love it. I want it. And I think what's so cool about this is the one single picture. And I know you guys have seen it, and when we pull it up here on the screen, look at this. Yes, you have seen this picture before, the legendary Hyena build. So this is the HK417D Assaulter. Guys, this is a 12-inch 7.62 gun. Now, what's interesting is when these guns came about, you know, it was mid to early global war on terror. So everybody was being outfitted with 5.56 guns, and you know, we found ourselves kind of lacking in that stopping power and the little extra distance that was needed. It came to the point where, well, the bad guys had learned our actual effective distance of our M4s, which is, you know, roughly 600 meters. So what they were doing is, hey, these guys can only shoot 600 meters with their carbines before they call in an airstrike. We're gonna hold off and sit back beyond their effective range and just try and pick them off and just try and lob some rounds in, scare them to death before they call in an airstrike and, you know, vaporize all of us. Now, what's interesting is when it come to these large frame gassers, what they really, really wanted was something with just that little bit more oomph, a little more stopping power, penetrating power, and of course, better downrange ballistics than a 5.56 bullet. Because, I mean, let's be real, a 62 grain 5.56 is, you know, at 500 yards is not gonna feel the same as a 7.62, you know, 175 grain. But I'll say, I don't wanna get shot by either one. I will say, if I had the choice, it'd probably have to be the 5.56, but now correct me if I'm wrong, but these came in like 3 different renditions, right?
Yeah, so the ones that were issued to JSOC were the 12-inch Assaulter, the 14.5, and then a 20-inch Sniper model, the Assaulter being the most prevalent. Because of the role it fulfilled.
These are the 12-inch ones.
Yes, the Assaulter build, or the Assaulter, which is the Hyena build, is a 12-inch gun. And that is what the Tier 1 units requested and were outfitted with the most of the 3 variants.
Now, when we say Tier 1, guys, we're talking like Delta Force CAG, we're talking DEVGRU, Navy SEALs, stuff like that. Just the high-end, high-speed units were the only ones getting these kinds of guns. And it seems like it's a mix, would you say, of like the pictures that we're going to show here are, you know, Delta guys and also some DEVGRU dudes. You know, obviously they've got some redacted faces in them and stuff, but you see them a lot, and it's only exclusive to those Tier 1 units. Now, why is that, Kieran?
It was early on in the global war on terror. They were still feeling out what they needed. They were not necessarily the lab rats, but they had more leeway with what they could get for the jobs that they had to do.
That big budget,
Yeah.
baby.
And they also had specialized roles for their mission set that they were trying to fulfill.
Yeah.
This being about the same size as an M4, but shooting the 308 or 7.62 by 51 cartridge. Outfitted with a suppressor, you know, you're still in that same package size as an M4 with a can, but, you know, a lot more oomph behind it.
Yeah. I get that for sure. And you know, I mean, guys, it's never a bad thing to have more stopping power, right? My 45, 1911 Haas, 3 world wars. Now, one thing I've noticed over the past, especially the last 5 years, is this trend of everything getting shorter. I remember growing up, like, it was always, I need the longest gun because I want to be the sniper, or I just want the best ballistics, the best muzzle velocity that I possibly can. And it's very interesting over the past, especially the past couple decades, and what we've learned in the global war on terror is that everything is getting shorter. Everything is just more compact, lighter, and just chasing the best blend of performance, muzzle velocity, without sacrificing too much musket feel, if you will. So you said HK calls this an assaulter? Is that just like something they termed it?
It wasn't a nickname. It's in their catalog. It is called an assaulter because of the people that were
rifle.
The people who were going to be fielded with it. They were assaulters. This is not a sniper's weapon per se. This is someone who is going to kick down a door, and that is going to be their primary weapon.
So I can see where they're coming from, because when you have the suppressor on it, yeah, it feels more like that DMR, almost rifle-like. I mean, this suppressor's a little long, but here's the thing. Pop this guy off here, and you do have a very short, very nimble rifle. So pop up your legs here on your Harris bipod. Most of these guys were issued with Harris bipods, because that was pretty much really it back then, right?
That was it with the Knights bipod adapter on there.
Yeah, so you could get it on the Picatinny rail. I mean, realistically, this does feel like such a nice, short, compact little rifle. So, guys, this is a 12-inch barrel 7.62.
Yeah.
There's really, I mean, how many companies are actually doing 7.62 guns that short? I don't know of any, really.
Slim to none.
Slim to none, yeah.
Especially with, you know, actual field use behind it, I would say none.
Yeah, I mean, that, realistically, so we're going to take a look here at the dope charts on this guy and see what kind of muzzle velocity it is, and see what kind of energy that we're getting downrange, and see if this was even a good idea, because I feel like LMT, what's their shortest one? Don't they do like a 13.7?
I think so, yeah.
So LMT does a 13.7. They might have a few variants that are shorter, but I think that's like the shortest they usually go. And then Knights, the shortest ones they have is a 14.5, HK obviously being a 12-inch, but these aren't even available on the civilian market,
correct,
right?
Yeah.
So if this isn't available in the civilian market, how did you get it other than black market?
So we partnered with a company called Sigwo Arms.
He's in the mafia.
They actually did the full assaulter conversion for us. They're doing it for others as well. If you have a standard MR762, you can get it fully converted to an assaulter turnkey. It depends on how much detail you want. This is a clone correct version from the early 2010s. If you don't want to go like the full route of the conversion, you know, it's a pretty simple process. But yeah, Sigwo Arms did this for us, and it's been, I mean, I think I told Cody when we started the video, I have not lubed this at all since I bought the gun. Yeah,
this dude is a mad lad. So it's kind of funny. I've actually used 2 of his HK guns on my channel. So we first did the 416A5, and now we have the 417D. And when he brought the 416 out, he was literally like, I remember I was racking, I was like, dude, let's get a little bit of oil on this thing. It looks a little dry in there, buddy. And he's literally like, I don't put oil on this gun. I said, what? I said, like, I mean, it's gonna get a little ugly out there. Like, you know, we're gonna beat the brakes off this thing. He's like, it'll be fine. So I took his word for it, whatever. I'm not kidding. It was no issue whatsoever. We didn't have any failures to feed, any failures to eject, anything like that. And now he brings out this 417, and he's like, yo, bro, like, I don't need any lube in this thing. And I'm like, well, I mean, he proved me wrong last time, so let's just see today. Even with a suppressor, and then, you know, guys, this suppressor here, this Rotex 7.62, it is not exactly what you would call high flow, pressure reduced technology, flow through, or whatever the
I think it was made about a decade before anyone even said the phrase flow through.
Yeah, I mean, so how old is this suppressor, by the way? Is this design at least 20 years old?
Pushing it.
Jeez, a couple decades old, guys. I was a youngin' then. I was just a young buck. But that can is not exactly, again, what you would consider flow through by any means whatsoever. And it's kind of impressive how clean the gun ran. I mean, we put, I would say, at least 300 to 350 rounds through this real quick. And after inspecting that first 350 to like maybe 400 rounds, guys, I can still see MR on the bolt carrier. I can still see HK on the bolt carrier. I can assure you, if this was any of my other DI guns, there's no chance I'd be able to read that. Like, in my Knights sand cutter carriers where they have the Knights logo at, probably right around 120 rounds. I have no idea if it's a chrome carrier or it's a phosphate carrier. I don't even know the finish on because it's pitch black. But this gun did run exceptionally clean. Now, you mentioned this is a clone, and we are cloning that very iconic person in that very iconic picture. So tell me a little bit about that and what really just inspired you to build this.
So it was more the iconic picture itself that made me want to clone this. Growing up, I remember watching Black Hawk Down and that famous line, you know, just another Delta Safari. And that was in a movie where they didn't even show the actual hog going down, they just show it barbecued. This was a man who actually bagged a Hyena and put it on the front of his ATV. And even though it was DEVGRU, I mean, the whole joke was, you know, another Delta Safari. But also just how rare the rifle setup was, to the point of impossible to properly clone.
It's been literally since your company, Tier 1 Outfitters and VBD Retail, got these things here that you could actually make this a real clone.
Correct.
And it's not just the BNT clone for this. There's tons of other BNT suppressors that are used on lots of American guns. So I think that's super interesting. Now, I'll be honest, guys, this thing, I'm not a huge HK fan by any means, especially, I mean, their pistols are kind of okay. Their 416, in my opinion, is just kind of bleh. But their 417, guys, this is just my opinion. It's my own trash opinion, so take it easy, right? God, this gun is sweet. This gun is awesome. I mean, there's no doubt about it, guys. I am on that hype train of just short, large frame gassers, large frame piston, 7.62, 6.5 guns. I mean, it's just something special, and to feel how handy it is. I mean, guys, so we have an LA5 on here. We have a huge Mark 6 Leupold. It's a 3 to 18 power optic. So, and by no means is this a light optic, you know, and all the setup that we have on it here, but it's still very wieldy. It's very just easy to throw, point, and go. And then you have that big old stopping power, baby, that 7.62 double pumper. I mean, it's a blast. So yeah, overall, I mean, guys, this thing is an absolute riot to shoot. It's so much fun, and not to mention, I mean, HK does make a fine rifle. There's no doubt about it. And when it comes to large frame gassers and large frame 7.62 guns like this here, I'm telling you, this thing, HK really knocks it out of the park on that. But, you know, of course, it's HK, so there's going to be some pros and there's going to be some cons. So let's start with the pros first. Pros, I mean, God, it's sexy. I mean, let's be real here. There's hardly a more attractive large frame gun out there. I mean, there's a couple maybe, but objectively, this thing is just beautiful. It is a beautiful gun. I mean, the quad rail, the tasteful finish, the 417. Oh my God, does that have a BNT suppressor on it? But of course, it comes with some of the cons. Now, the biggest cons being, guys, it's got some proprietary parts on it. So you have a piston system on it, and you know, let's be real, Eugene Stoner obviously didn't design his gun around that because he said, hey, I did the AR-18, I don't want to do that anymore because it's not nearly as good, so we went with DI. But that's just subjective. On this gun, it seems to work, and it seems to work really well. And as we can see, guys, we got a clean bolt carrier with a suppressor on here. I mean, to be quite frank, that's impressive. So it's gas appropriately for the suppressor, there's no doubt. But you have some other proprietary parts, one being the trigger. So HK's triggers are a little weird and a little different. Now, Geisley makes a great drop-in trigger for these, and I highly, highly suggest it. I will say their factory trigger is pretty outstanding. It's a nice little two-stage mount trigger. You could really get by without replacing it, but I would recommend it if you're a serious shooter because you will enjoy that. Now, you do have a little bit of problem here in the rear end. Everybody's got problems with the rear end, especially after Taco Bell. But we have a buffer tube here that is just much larger than any mil-spec tube. And the problem with that is that, guys, hardly anybody supports this larger buffer tube, really, other than HK. So I can't just get an LMT SOP mod, I can't get the B5, I can't get, you know, any Magpul or Reptilia. Anything that is mil-spec is just not gonna fit on this gun. And that's a little frustrating because I'm gonna be honest, this gigantic hunk of plastic back here in polymer, it's not my favorite. You've got these huge sling loops in the back, and when I go to pop it up, sometimes they bust me in the chops, and it's just tough with the proprietary stuff. And even the mags are 40 bucks a pop and they're plastic. I feel like that's a little pricey for a plastic mag, but I will say they do seem very good quality and well-made mags. So you've convinced yourself, you say, God, I gotta have one of these things. And you should. These guns are absolutely sweet. And this is a sweet clone rifle to build that is actually now available. So let's say you wanted to build one of these guns. Let me ask you something, Kieran. How would I go about getting one of these done through Tier 1 Outfitters and VBD Retail?
I'd say the first step, even with NFA wait times being low, is get the suppressor. These suppressors are not built from ready-made parts. Like, we have to import a lot of these. So step one, get the suppressor. Once you get the suppressor, we are more than happy to help you source the parts to get 100% clone correct build. We've done it for a couple people already. You've got the 417 markings on there. We've got a guy. You need the optics, we can help you source them. You know, it's a one-stop shop with us for it. Just get the suppressor first and get the headache out of the way.
Well, gentlemen, I believe we have a wrap here on the HK Assaulter Hyena clone build. Kieran, I really appreciate you coming down and bringing this gun, man. It is such a treat to actually get to use something that some of our, you know, our nation's absolute finest, you know, our Tier 1 operators have used. And it's like to the exact spec. So it's kind of special to actually get to use something that probably stacked a few bodies overseas. We definitely know at least one Hyena, so that's pretty rad. Kieran, tell us where they can find you at.
You can find me at tier1outfitters.net. That's TYR, the number 1 outfitters.net. And you can also find the B&T Rotex 3 at vbdretail.com.